Shalom, shalom, everyone. Thank you for watching this video today. I am Ayana. I'm a facilitator today. You are watching the YHUHderek channel, and this is Examining the Moon Part 2, which is a part of the Understanding Genesis Chapter 1 series. Let's get started. All right, so in Part 2, we are going to talk about correcting mistranslating scripture verses that point to a full moon or new moon observation and ask the question, which moon should be observed? All right, here we go. So, which phase of the moon should be idolized? Some people within the lunar calendar say new moon. Some people within the lunar calendar say full moon. I have the dark moon on here also because a new moon is actually synonymous to a dark moon. And if you do research on the dark moon, you will find that there are many pagan religions, witchcraft, that utilizes the dark moon. So that's why I have all three of them up here, and let's start answering that question. Now that we have covered the confusion of the definitions for moon and month in concordances and lexicons, we now need to address the confusion of which phase of the moon to use for feast purposes. Proponents of the lunar calendar will either tell you the new moon is what should be followed or that the full moon should be followed. But the scripture verses used to propel these phases of the moon have been misinterpreted, and we'll get to that right now. But first, we're talking about the moon a lot, but YHUH has a lot to say with regards to worshiping or venerating any of his creations. And so take a look here at Deuteronomy 4, verses 15 through 19. I won't read it all, but I will read the highlighted section, the bottom part. And unless you lift your eyes up to heaven, and when you see the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the hosts of heaven, should you be driven to worship them, and serve them, which YHUH, your Eluah, have divided unto all nations under the whole of heaven. So what YHUH is saying there is that you would worship a thing that I gave to the entire earth for a purpose. Again, in Genesis Bereshith, chapter 1, YHUH says that he made two great lights, one light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night, to give light. Okay, but we'll get into that later. Let's go. So the first mistranslated verse is Psalm 81:3. Blow the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed on our solemn feast day. You see that I have it here in YHUH going from right to left. The highlighted word here, first of all, we got Kadash, which if you looked at the last video, I made the point that if it actually said new moon, it would be Yerach Kadash. Here you can see here in the yellow, in the YHUH form of the verse, Kadash, it's only Kadash, so that means month. That does not mean new moon. But let's turn our attention to the blue section here, Casa, or Bakasa, but the real word is Casa, and let's look up this word. So Casa, you can find the Strong's number here, 3677. It is Syriac. So already, number one, before we even get into the definition, we got a problem. Syriac, if you remember by looking at the video, What Hebrew Isn't, I went over the history of the Babylonian language, Babylonian/Assyrian language, and they adopted Aramaic into their language. They used Aramaic, and Aramaic went through a name change around 200 AD, and it was turned into the word Syriac. So Syriac equals Aramaic, Aramaic equals Babylonian, Assyrian languages. So right now we have a problem. H3677, Casa. Notate that the alp or aleph is at the end of the word. The full moon, either in its first day or the duration of the full moon phase. The 14th day of the month, the full moon, as it were, the Ides. The Ides is a Roman identification for the middle of the month of March. Oh, I'm sorry. Also, the festival celebrated at that time. So there is a festival celebrated at that time, the Ides, again Roman, and then we have Syriac, which is Babylonian, Assyrian, and Aramaic. Second word, Casa, ending with a hey. 3680, to cover, cover over, conceal or hide. And then the root word is kas. H3676, it's the root word to casa and casa. To hide, to conceal, to include, to number, remember that definition, to number, and to assess. So, according to several concordances and lexicons, they equate casa with an A, the Syriac word, with casa, the YHUHderek word, to mean full moon. Not only do the words not mean the same thing, but the words are from two different languages, Syriac and YHUHderek, otherwise known as Hebrew. In YHUHderek, Cashapp means to cover over, to hide. A full glowing moon is not hidden, so much so that Gesenius states in the following in his lexicon. Casa with an aleph at the end. You can read the top portion. It says the full moon, Syriac, okay, the first day of the moon, also the whole time of the full moon, and it is often used by Bar Hebraeus and Ephraim Sirius. The etymology is not clear to me, for it is not satisfactory to say that it is so called from the whole moon being covered with light. And he has both words here, casa and casa. Verbs of covering often apply in the sense of hiding or covering over, but never, as far as I know, to that of giving light. So the fact that casa with an aleph is saying that the full moon is covered with light, covered over with light, more specifically, it doesn't make sense. A full moon is not covered or hidden, right? And it's nonsensical to even say it like that. This is clearly a mistranslation of the verse, but it has been allowed to be propagated over the centuries without correction. No wonder some lunar calendar proponents say we should follow the full moon and others say we should follow the new moon. And I would like you to take a look at the various translations of this very verse in a variety of scripture books. So what you're looking at here is the same Psalm 81:3. This is from BibleHub.com. I have the accreditation down here in the corner and also in the resources at the end. But I want you to look at this. New International Version, New Moon. Living Translation Version, New Moon. English Standard Version, New Moon. Berean Study Bible, New Moon. King James Bible, New Moon. New King James Bible, New Moon. American Standard Bible, new moon and full moon. Right? New moon, full moon. Full moon, new moon. New moon, full moon. Look at these. They all say new moon and full moon. No wonder the lunar calendar people have no idea whether it should be the new moon or whether it should be the full moon. It says both. In most of these translations, it says both. What are you going to do? So, I took the verse and I broke it down. I did not include the Syriac definition because that's just not Yahudiath. And as I stated in the first part, that the Babylonians, that the Assyrians, they were moon worshippers. They used astrology and all types of witchcraft and magic to worship and venerate the moon. And so we're not going to use the Syriac. But I have broken down, color coded this same verse. We have Kadash here in a red, and then we have Bakasa, which I have highlighted the Kas, and I have a new word in here, Makas, which is Strong's 4371. So Kas, H3676, I asked you to remember that one of the definitions was to number. So although the root word Kas means to hide, conceal, it also means to number. But you will not find that definition in Strong's under Kas. It is found under the word Makas. Okay, it's the bim is a prefix, right? You'll find it in Strong's 4371. It means to number, to price, to pay tribute. So you will not find Kas to mean number in Strong's. You will find it under Makas. So instead of the verse reading, blow the trumpet in the new moon in the time appointed on our solemn feast day, it should say this: blow the trumpet in the month, not new moon. We went over that in the first part. In the numbered days of our feast. That makes complete sense. In the numbered days of our feast, because Yahuwah has numbered the feast. We went over that. Not only does he tell us what day to start, how long the feast is, what day in the month to put it on, he tells us whether it's a Shabbat or not. So why is the definition of Makas, meaning to number or to pay tribute, fit the verse better than the definition of full moon or to cover over? Two reasons why it makes a better fit. All right. Again, we got Makas. We have Makas, to number, to price, to pay tribute. Number one, first reason it makes a better translation instead of full moon. All feasts are numbered by Yahuwah. Not only does Yahuwah tell us which day of the month the festival falls on, he tells us how many days the festival should last. So Yahuwah numbers the feasts, right? He tells us how long they are and what day of the month it falls on. It is only after we are told the duration of the feast that we are told which one should start in the evenings. Reason number two, that Makas makes a better translation than Kasa, and meaning full moon, is that Yahuwah demands that 3 times a year all men of Yasharel are to appear before him with a mandatory offering, otherwise known as a tribute, which is the second definition for Makas. Again, up here, to number, to price, to pay tribute. Here's an example. Deuteronomy 16 through 17. 3 times in a year shall all your males appear before Yahuwah your Eluah in the place he shall choose. In the feast of unleavened bread, which is matzah, in the feast of weeks, which is shabuah, and the feast of tabernacles, which is Saka. And they shall not appear before Yahuwah empty-handed. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the barakah, which is blessing, that Yahuwah your Eluah, which he have given you. So you are to come with an offering, a tribute. You are supposed to come with some sort of tribute and give it an offering, a tribute to give to Yahuwah during the feast day, the feast that he demanded, which are numbered and can be plainly seen without All right, sorry about that. I don't know if you heard the phone ringing, but it was, so I just paused for a second. To see how other festivals are numbered, you can look at these verses down here in the box. All right, so we talked about Psalms 81. Now we're going to talk about Psalms 104:19. Now, the reason why I picked these verses because when you speak with people and they argue for the lunar calendar, they usually pick out these verses. Also in the verses in 1 Sam 20, which I covered in part 1 of this series. So, Psalms 104:19. He appointed the moon for seasons, the sun knows his going down. All right, so this verse outright is mistranslated. The word for appointed in the verse is inaccurate. The scripture for the main word that's used in scripture for appoint is the word shum, which is Strong 77 H7760, meaning to set or to place. The word in this scripture, 104:19, is the word Asha, Strong's H6213, meaning to work, to do labor, or to make. In addition to the YHUHderek word, which is in blue, for muad or moad, if you're using vowel pointing, that means a set time. Okay, muad is not a word that is meant exclusively for Yahuwah's feast. It is a set time or a point in time. So the root word to muad is aid. Aid means perpetual time, forever, eternal. Okay, muad means a point in perpetual time. Okay, so it could be any set time. It doesn't have to mean just particularly to Yahuwah's feasts. All right, but when you start learning about the lunar calendar, and when people defend the lunar calendar, they say, oh, well, the moed, or as I say, muad, the moed is feast. No, moed means a set time. Okay, a point in time. It was translated into seasons in English, but it is a set time. All right. This verse in particular is talking about the daily set courses for the moon and the sun. The entire psalm of 104 is talking about all of Yahuwah's creations. So this verse is not even meant to be talking about Yahuwah's feasts. Okay, this verse is talking about what the moon, this creation of the moon and the sun, what Yahuwah wanted to be done with that. If you read the entirety of Psalm 104, you would see that it goes through different various creations that Yahuwah has made and how wonderful they are. Okay, so the correct translation of Psalm 104 verse 19 would be, the moon works his set times. Works would be the word Asha, right? Meaning to work, to do labor. And the word for seasons would be set time. The moon knows his set times. The sun knows his coming in, right? So this is talking about the sun and the moon knowing what they're supposed to do, what Yahuwah set them to do, not for feasts. Okay, he did not appoint the moon for feast. He said the moon works its set times, and the sun knows its set times. So, in conclusion, in part 2, we reviewed 2 often applied but mistranslated verses that address whether the full moon or the new moon should be considered. In Psalm 91, we showed that various translations had actually both full moon and new moon, and then there was one that just said full moon. right? This was done by using a Syriac/Babylonian word, kasa, with the aleph at the end, instead of the YHUHderek word, kasa, with the hey at the end. Psalm 104 has been used as an example that the moon is for setting the feasts, but that's not correct. It's by using the correct translation, the verse is referring to the motion of the moon and the sun. Lastly, in the box, the ultimate answer to which phase of the moon should be idolized. The answer is none. Neither one. It's been done by mistranslation and misapplications to point out the moon. Okay? So far in both parts 1 and 2, observing the moon has been exalted by changing definitions in concordances and lexicons of YHUHderek words for month and moon, and also mistranslating different verses that point out the moon by using different languages that have a different meaning and not YHUHderek or Hebrew translations. So I hope you enjoyed this portion of part 2 of examining the moon. Here are the resources that I used for this section. And if you have any questions, I forgot to put it on here. You can email me at YHUHderek@mail.com. Thank you, and may Yahuwah Baruch you and your family. Shalom.